Thank you, Eliza, and thank you all for joining us this evening. On behalf of the community Beit Midrash of the Women's Beit Midrash, Everfrat and Gush Etzion, Beit Midrash Harel, and Manash Gush Etzion Cathedra, I welcome you all to our pre-Shavuot Shir with Rav Herzl Hefter, founder and Rosh Beit Midrash of Beit Midrash Harel. This program is dedicated in memory of my grandparents, David and Helen Kaplan, David ben Yitzchak V'Mindel, and Henya bat Yitzchak V'Perel. My grandparents were individuals who valued tradition, Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, and the vital ongoing conversation with Hashem. These themes are woven into the teachings that I've been privileged to learn with Rav Herzl over the years, and we are honored to hear you this evening, Rav Herzl Hefter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pnina. I'm very happy to be here and to be giving a shir in memory of your grandparents, and they should have an ilui of their neshama. Okay, so it seems like a funny question, who spoke at Sinai, when, of course, from the earliest age, and I speak, as I went to Yeshiva Elementary School in Borough Park, and from the earliest age, the question would seem very silly, of course, that it was God that spoke at Sinai. If we look at the psukim, at the passages, I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so if we look at the psukim, at the passages which I brought in the first source, so a different picture emerges. I'm actually going to start from the verses at the end, which is the beginning of Aseret HaDibrot, right here, what I'm highlighting right here, okay? Vaydaber Elohim et kol hadvarim ha'ela lemor, Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzaticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim. So who's speaking? If we started from there, we get the distinct notion that it's God who's speaking Aseret HaDibrot. But if we go just a little bit beforehand, right? God says to Moshe, Vayomer elav Hashem, lech reid, I'm right over here now, right? Lech reid, va'alita ata va'aron imach, va'konim va'am al yersu la'alot el Hashem pen yifrotz bam, vayered Moshe el ha'am, vayomer aleihem. So it's Moshe who's speaking, right? See that? I just made it bold, right? It's Moshe who's speaking. So Moshe is telling the people that God is speaking, right? Because that's Vaydaber Elohim. Okay, so we have a bit of confusion here, and if we go even towards the beginning, now let's take it from the top, so to speak, right? Vayehi kol hashofar holech v'chazek ma'od, Moshe yidaber va'Elohim yanenu b'kol. We're going to come back to that verse in a moment. Vayered Hashem al har Sinai el Rosh Har, vayikra Hashem leMoshe el Rosh Har, vayal Moshe. God comes down onto Har Sinai, so to speak, and he calls Moshe up. He calls Moshe up in order to tell him to go down. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe reid ha'ed ba'am, pen yersu el Hashem lirot v'nafal mimenu rav. So God comes down, calls Moshe up, tells Moshe to go down, and then Moshe says, Vayomer Moshe el Hashem lo yuchal ha'am la'alot el har Sinai ki ata ha'edot banu lemor hagbel tahar v'kidashto. So Moshe saying, there's no reason for me to go down because, of course, they won't come up. Then God says, Vayomer elav Hashem lech reid. He insists. Right? Moshe's a troublemaker from the beginning. In any case, Vayomer elav Hashem lech reid, ve'alita ata v'aron imach. So there's a lot of there's lots of going up and going down, and there's confusion in terms of the choreography. There's confusion in terms of the choreography. God coming down, Moshe coming up, going down, coming up. Right? The people afraid the people are going to come up. They are going to come up. They're not going to come up. Right? God, and then of course, Vayered Moshe la'am, Vayom aleihem, and then Vayidaber Elohim. And there's this confusion about who's speaking. Now, the confusion about who's speaking really revolves around the first verse in this section, which is right here. Vayihi kol hashofar holech v'chazak ma'od, Moshe yidaber v'ha'elohim ya'anenu b'kol. What does that mean? Moshe yidaber v'ha'elohim ya'anenu b'kol. Moshe speaks. Let's just stick to as closely as we can to what we think pshat might be here. Moshe speaks, and God responds to him in a voice. Okay. Let's take a look at a passage in the Talmud from Masechet Brachot. And then we're going to see something in the Mea Shiloach about this. So the Talmud in Masechet Brachot says as follows. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, Minayin she'ein hamitargem rashai lagbia kolo yoter min hakorei. Now, in the time of the Talmud, they used to read the Torah and have a mitargem, someone who translated the Hebrew text of the Torah into the vernacular, which was then, of course, Aramaic. So that he was called a mitargem, so that people should understand. So the halacha is that you had the Baal Koreh, and the mitargem would be mitargem afterwards, and the mitargem should not raise his voice higher or more loudly than the voice of the Koreh, probably to distinguish between the text of the Torah and the text of the Tirgum, so people shouldn't get confused of what the Torah is and what the translation of the Torah is. So the translator is not supposed to raise his voice louder than the Baal Koreh. So how do we know this halacha? Shene'emar Moshe yidaber v'ha'elohim ya'anenu b'kol. She'ein tamud lomar b'kol, u'ma tamud lomar b'kol, b'kolo shel Moshe. Right, so what does it mean? God, of course, doesn't answer in a voice. So what does it mean in a voice? Right, God, he responds to Moshe's voice not louder than Moshe's voice. That would be how the context of the Talmudic halacha. Okay, so from here we see that the mitargem, the translator, should not be louder than the Baal Koreh. Now, if we think about this for a second, we have God and Moshe, and they are parallel to the mitargem and to the Baal Koreh. Who is parallel to whom? Right? It seems there's something very very mechudash, something very new here in what the Talmud is saying. Namely, Moshe. If I would ask you, let's put the Talmud aside for a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment so I can see whoever I can see. Okay. So if I would ask you, who is the mitargem? If you have God and Moshe, who is the mitargem and who is the Baal Koreh? What would you say? You want to unmute themselves and just one person, first person to unmute themselves? Anybody want to say? Should I call on someone? I see all these names that I know.
Moshe, I would assume, Herzl, I would assume that it was God that was speaking and Moshe that was the mitargem.
Right, that's what we would assume, right? That God is the Baal Koreh, because he's the one that's actually dictating the Torah, and Moshe Rabbeinu is the mitargem. He's the one who's explaining it or bringing it to the people, right? That's what a mitargem, a translator, is the one who brings it to the people, right? That's where the word hermeneutics comes from the Greek god Hermes, who brings the wisdom from Zeus. So I'm sorry for the mixture here, but you have Zeus and Hermes, right? You have God and Moshe, right? Moshe is the one who explains it, and God is the one who gives it. That's what we would say, right? But if you look carefully, I'm going to go back to sharing the screen now. If we look back at the text, so if it says, "Minayin she'ena mitargem rashai lagbia et kolo yoter min hakoreh," right? Moshe yidaber v'ha'elohim ya'anenu b'kol. Moshe is the one who speaks, and God is the one who speaks after, not louder than the voice of Moshe. So it turns out, according to this, that it's Moshe who's the Bal Koreh, and God is the Mitargem. That's very strange. All right, now let's see what the Me'ah Shiloach says about this. Okay, this is the Me'ah Shiloach on these psukim. Vayihi kol shofar v'chulei. Moshe yidaber v'ha'elohim ya'anenu b'kol. V'nilmad mizeh b'masechet brachot. Mikan shelo yagbia hamiturgeman et kolo yoter min hamivarech. Shene'emar v'ha'elohim ya'anenu b'kol. V'hu tamua. This is very surprising. And he quotes Rishonim that are bothered by what we just said, by the simple reading of the Talmud, and the truth is, by the simple reading of the text of the Torah itself, that Moshe is the one who is actually saying Aserta Dibrot, and God is the one who is responding. God is the one bringing it to the people. So let's see what the Me'ah Shiloach does with this. Ayin, Betosfot, Varif, yeah, Shikshu kimizenir elahefech. Right, it seems the opposite. Right, Ba'inyan bazeh ki be'emet Moshe haya omer aseret hadibrot liYisrael. Moshe was the one that said aseret hadibrot. Ach, and this is different from both movies, right? Certainly, I don't remember the Prince of Egypt so well, but I remember the Ten Commandments. In the Ten Commandments, it's clearly God saying Aseret HaDibrot, okay? So we have a kasha on the Ten Commandments on Cecil B. DeMille, alav hashalom. In any case, V'anyan bazeh ki be'emet Moshe haya omer hadibrot liYisrael, ach b'shoresh hadavar sheyuchkiku hadivrei Torah b'libot Yisrael, ze haya me'et Hashem yitbarach, shaya chokek b'lev kol echad ve'echad kefi ritzono yitbarach. So he says, in truth, it was Moshe who said the Ten Commandments, and it was God who was the one. You know, we have this experience, right? You hear something from the outside, and then, if it's powerful, we feel that we have to take it in. Right? We talk about even digesting it. You say, let me digest it. So it's it's almost a very physical sensation. You have something from the outside, and it affects you physically. You have to take it in. So you always think, all right, so what's on the outside is God speaking. And as a human being, from my perspective, I have to take it in. And that's me taking it in. What he's saying is the exact opposite. It's the opposite of what it appears to be. It's the opposite of the way we experience it. He's saying that it's Moshe speaking, and that experience that we have of ourselves taking it in, that's God taking it in for us. Okay? Shahaya zeh me'et Hashem yitbarach, shaya chokek b'leiv kol echad ve'echad kefi ritzono yitbarach. That he would engrave the Torah in the heart of every person. Right? And that's where you get these psukim from Mishlei, kotveim al luchot libecha. Right? Write the Torah on the tablets of your heart. It's not just poetic, right? The tablets of the Torah, the luchot habrit, are symbols for the luchot of your heart. And then it's God who engraves the Torah into the luchot. It's luchot libecha. So there's something happening where consciously you feel that it's you, right? I'm the one who's absorbing it. It's my effort. It's the feelings that I have of experiencing what's going on. But unconsciously, or before your consciousness, unknown to your consciousness, God is the one who is moving things around. So you're feeling moved, but it's God who's moving you. So it's coming from Moshe's voice, and you never hear God's voice. God is the one who's sort of acting in your unconscious. V'zeh ha'inyan asher Hashem yitbarach kiviyachol nikra miturgeman. And that's why God is called the miturgeman. God is called the translator. Okay? See that? God is called the miturgeman. Hainu, achar sheyitz'u aseret hadibrot mipi Moshe Yisrael, after the 10 Commandments came from Moshe's mouth to Israel, Chazar HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chakak otam b'libam. Then God takes the words and engraves them in their hearts. So here, based on the Psukim, based on the Gemara's interpretation of the Psukim, the Mei HaShiloach saying something very radical, but it's not the Mei HaShiloach. It's really in the Psukim and in Chazal, in the Talmud, namely, and this is very important, that the Torah is revealed through human mediation. It only comes into the world through human mediation. In other words, through human consciousness, through what happens in a human being's mind and heart. So it's Moshe Rabbeinu who brings us the Torah. And then where is God in all this? God is hidden. God is hidden in the deepest recesses of our own consciousness, that we're not even aware that it's God that's helping us absorb what it is we're experiencing. Now, there are a number of different ramifications to this understanding. The first, let's take it to the source here. This is Likutei Amarim. This is Rab Tzadok HaKohen Milublin, who was a disciple of the Mei HaShiloach. He died in the year 1900. So let's see. He has a description in general of revelation and the giving of the Torah. So he says as follows: Ubazet tavin ma she'amru hakadmonim ki kol nefesh miYisrael yesh lo achiza ba'ot midivrei Torah. V'amru oraita v'Yisrael chad. V'amru di Yisrael Rashi Tevot yesh shishim ribo otiot la Torah kanoda. Okay, he's saying, based on the Zohar, that every soul of Israel has a connection to a letter in a Sefer Torah. Now, this might sound very poetic. It could be very poignant. But it doesn't stop there. What does it mean when we say that every person has an achiza, a rooted connection to letters in the Sefer Torah? Now, what they told me in yeshiva, they used to say that what this means is everyone can find a part of the Torah that speaks to them. There are some people that are more interested in Tanakh, and there's some people that are more interested in the halachic aspects of the Gemara, and there's some people that are interested in Agadata and more in the narrative aspects of the Gemara, and there are some people that like Jewish philosophy. So there's something there for everyone. Now, that's true, I believe, but I don't believe that that's what the Zohar and that's what Rab Tzadok is getting at. So let's return to that. Okay. I don't think that's what they're getting at. he's saying as follows. So he says that Oraita v'Yisrael chad. There's a unity between Israel and the Torah. I want to flesh that out in a moment, okay? V'amru the Yisrael Rashi Tevot yesh shishim ribo otiot laTorah kanoda. Everyone knows this. I don't know if everyone knows this, but now you'll all know it. Namely, the letters of the word Yisrael are yesh shishim ribo otiot laTorah. There are 600,000 letters to the Torah, and that the Rashi Tevot, the acronym for that is Yisrael, okay? Now, what does that mean? I always think of the movie Amadeus when I think of this, okay? Do you remember the movie Amadeus? Everybody, like, you can put little hands up. I think Zoom lets you put little hands up, right? Reactions like this, right? So the movie, there's a scene there where Salieri, who's the bad guy, right? He picks up one of Mozart's manuscripts, and there's just the ink on the parchment, right? And he's reading it, and as he's reading it, and also as Mozart is writing it, you can hear the symphony. How does that happen? How does the ink, that's a miracle. You just have ink on parchment, and it takes Salieri's breath away. He almost faints, if I remember. I saw the movie 25 years ago, whenever, right? But how does that happen? There's a translation that's occurring from literally from the note, from the written note, from the letter, that goes through human consciousness and moves the human being until it can actually be heard physically. So the paper, it's like you add water to the paper and mix, and then the sounds come out. So how does that happen that's exactly what happens with the Torah. How does God become revealed in the world? It's not just ink on parchment in the Aron Kodesh. When I open it up and I try to understand it and I connect to it, and then it impacts upon me, and it changes the way I behave and the way other people see me, and we do that as a community, so that's how it becomes music. Before then, they're dead letters. But when the people live them, the dead letters become living words. That's what it means when you say Torat Chaim. It's literally alive because the people are really the letters of the Torah. It's not merely some poignant, poetic way of trying to describe the connection that we have to the Torah, that we all rooted in the Torah. When people begin to say things like that, it can very easily just become cliches. Yes, we're all rooted in the Torah. It's very beautiful, and the beautiful Torah. You hear this a lot. Right? But what does it mean? It means that the real divine revelation occurs when people, because they're moved by what they're seeing, what they're feeling, and what they're studying, it actually transforms them, and they really become the otiot of the Torah. Without them, there is no Torah. Without Am Yisrael, there is no such thing as the Torah. It's just parchment. It's just dead animal hide with vegetable dye rolled up someplace. It becomes a Sefer Torah when the people live it. And that's why Yisrael is Yesh Shishim Ribo Otiot LaTorah. Okay? Now I want to see the rest of this piece from Reb Tzadok here. So then he goes on to say, so again, this underscores that the Torah coming into the world must be mediated by human consciousness. The voice of God is never heard as the voice of God. The voice of God is heard and seen through me and you. Okay? V'hainu, let's continue here. Now I'm continuing Reb Tzadok. V'hainu ki chochmat Hashem yitbarach hu vadai ein sof kamo shehu kiviyachol ein sof. Now he's going to explain why it must be this way. It's not that it happens to be this way. It's not even that God chose that it should be this way. It must be this way. Ki chokhmat and it can be no other way. Ki chokhmat Hashem yitbarach hu vadai ein sof. Kamo shehu kiviyachol ein sof. V'rak ma shemitgale mimenu ba'olam hazeh כפי מה שאפשר לעולם הזה, שהוא בעל גבול להתגלות בו כפי גבולו, והוא עצם בריאת העולם הזה כמו שביארנו, וכפי שיעור זה נתגלית התורה שהיא חוכמתו יתברך. I want to read that again, okay? Because I can't say it better than Reb Tzadok. So I'm just going to read this again, okay? היינו, כי חוכמת השם יתברך הוא ודאי אין סוף, כמו שהוא כביכול אין סוף. רק מה שמתגלה ממנו בעולם הזה, כפי מה שאפשר לעולם הזה, שהוא בעל גבול להתגלות בו כפי גבולו, והוא עצם בריאת העולם הזה, כמו שביארנו. וכן כפי שיעור זה נתגלית התורה, שהיא חוכמתו יתברך. He's saying that this is the only way that can be a revelation, because the way things are is that the world is limited. The world cannot hear God's voice all by itself. Right? That's the chaos and the collapsing that happens at Ma'amad Har Sinai. Listen to the Kriyas HaTorah carefully on Shavuos. Right? God's voice emerges and the people feel they're going to die because they can't, and that's why ultimately the luchot must be shattered, because it can't exist in this world outside of human consciousness. It's kefi, the key line, and this is poignant, the key line is kefi ma she'efshar la'olam hazeh. This world is limited in its nature. It can be no other way. God is revealed in the world as far as is possible in the world. And the only way it's possible in the world is through human consciousness, through Yesh Shishim Ribo Otiot La Torah, Yisrael, Kol Echad Yesh Lo Achiza Ba'ot Midivrei Torah. The way God is revealed in the world is through human beings. That is how the voice of God is heard. Not as something outside of human consciousness, but an expression of human consciousness. God is hidden in that, the way the Meturgaman cannot raise his voice above human consciousness in this sense. Because this is unconscious or superconscious, if you like. Freud didn't know the term superconscious, right? But that it would be beyond human consciousness, meaning we do not have access to that, but as a matter of faith, we believe it's there, moving us in a way that we cannot experience directly. So that's kafi mashe efshar ba'olam. So what this teaches us is, it's funny, this teaches us humility. It teaches us that we can only go so far, that what was revealed to us is limited by who we are. Okay? Now, I want to take this a step further to something that I found here in the Ma'orei Naim. The Ma'orei Naim is Rav Nachum Chernobyl, who was a disciple of the Magid of Mezrich, but he was old enough, he knew the Baal Shem Tov himself. He says as follows: V'chol echad kefi ma shehu adam ro'eh b'Torah al yedei levushim. Everyone perceives in the Torah through quote unquote levushim. Okay, I think it's worthwhile to take a moment just to try to explain what this means, seeing through levushim, seeing through a garment. what he's saying is as follows. We have different ways. Everyone has different sort of glasses through which we view the world. Everyone views the world from a certain perspective. And that's the levushim. So let me give you an example. If I'm a Marxist, I view the world through economic forces, and I'll interpret everything as a struggle of different groups around economics. If I'm Nietzsche, I view the world as a struggle for power. If I'm Freud, I view the world as repression of sexual desires and how that gets acted out. If I'm a feminist, I view the world as a struggle between men and women, right? Now, they all capture, in my mind, they all capture an aspect of reality, but they're levushim, right? So everyone sees the world or sees the Torah, same thing here, through levushim, right? If I'm a religious Zionist, I'm stopping the screen share for a second because I want everybody to see my face and I want to see everybody when I say this. If I'm a Zionist, everything is Eretz Yisrael, right? And if I'm left wing, then everything is human rights, okay? So there's different, and not everything's Eretz Yisrael, and not everything is human rights, and not everything is economics, and not everything is power, okay? And not everything is feminism, but they're all levushim, and we have to realize that. I'm speaking to a crowd which is probably mostly dati le'umi, so not everything is Eretz Yisrael, right? Interpreting things that way is putting on a certain set of glasses, which also causes distortions, okay? I said that about all levushim, but everybody has their own levush that they have to deal with. Anyway, let's go back here. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm not going to get into any more politics right now. In any case, but look what he says. He says, Shemasig haTorah bibchinat tova ra. So you grasp the Torah, right? This has to do with the mythic identification of the Torah with the Eitz Hadat Tova Ra. Okay, so misiga Torah b'bchinat tova ra, v'noda ki hara husam hamavet, kamo shemru b'shas, zacha naselo samachayim, lo zacha behefech. So he says, this is a very well-known saying, but now we have to really think about it, that the Torah has a potential to be poisonous, to be a lethal poison. Right? The Torah can be the Eitz HaChayim. It can give you life, but it can also give you death. We don't think about that much, that the Torah can actually promote death. Ulechora, now he's going to meditate on this for a minute. Ulechaora, hek shayach b'Torah, shehi notenet chayim l'chol chai, shehi naaseh behefech, sama mavet chas v'shalom. How can that be that the Torah can become sam hamavet? It can become a lethal poison. Ach ha'inyan hu ka'amur ki bevadai ha'Torah mitzida, the Torah all by itself, if there's such a thing, right? Right. I'll talk about that for a brief moment. The Torah all by itself, lo yivatzer hatov v'achayut, will lack nothing of the good and of the life. This idea of the Torah by itself, the Baal Shem Tov was said on Torat Hashem Tmima, the words Torat Hashem Tmima, the Torah of God is perfect, is complete. He says, Shelo nag'a bo yad adam, that a person never touched it. So that's an aspect of the Torah which is not revealed. Right? So we're not talking about an experience of the Torah that we can actually have, right? So it's that Torah mitzida lo yivatzer hatov v'chiyut, rak shehi, this is really important, shehi nekret aspaklaria. I already made it in bold, but I'm going to underline it and whatever. I made it big, okay? Shehi nikret aspaklaria. Aspaklaria is a mirror. Ukefi ma shehu adam, kach ro'eh panav b'aspaklaria. As a person is themselves, they see themselves in the Torah. The Torah gets reflected back to you according to who you are. So that's why you can have, that's why you can have terrible, terrible things being said in the name of the Torah. And people justify horrific actions. They just convicted someone of murdering an Arab child in Duma, somebody supposedly from, right? And these things are justified based on the Torah. How could that be? So here is a very sober, realistic view. It can be because when we interpret the Torah, we're ultimately interpreting ourselves. And if I have evil inside of me and bias inside of me and hatred inside of me, for whatever reason, I'm going to interpret the Torah that way. Right? You can make the Torah into Dracher Darchei Noam, and you can make the Torah into Mechiyat Amalek. It's all in the Torah. The question is, how do you interpret it? So what Rav Nachman Chernobyl is saying is something very realistic, that the Torah is a mirror and it reflects ourselves back to us. Okay? So what this does, it creates something which is a little disturbing, which we have to deal with. Namely, there's a subjectivity involved, because if the Torah must be mediated through human consciousness, there's no other way, which is the way Reb Tzadok puts it, right? Kefi ma she'efshar la'olam hazeh. That's the most you've got in this world, right? So then you get you get stuck someplace where, how do you crawl out of your own skin? If everything is in this world and it's all a reflection of me, so then what am I holding on to? Right? And this is a very serious problem. Okay, it might be true. Just because we don't have a serious problem, it doesn't mean that it's not true. A sober view of what the Parsha is telling us and what the Gemara is telling us, and certainly what the Hasidic masters are telling us here, is that the revelation of the Torah happens through human consciousness. God is behind the scenes. He is not sensed by human beings. Okay? So then how do we get beyond ourselves? Okay? That's one problem. If I don't answer that, I have thoughts about it, but let's continue in the meantime. Okay? The next ramification, so the first ramification of this, that the Torah is mediated through human consciousness, is that we have a problem with subjectivity. Okay? The next problem, okay? This is the Mea Shiloach in Parshat Matot, okay? So he says as follows: Vayidaber Moshe el Rashi Matot l'Bnei Yisrael lemor zeh hadavar. Okay? In the Torah it says zeh hadavar. This is what God spoke. So the Midrash, he quotes the Midrash, which says as follows: B'sifrei kol ha'neviim nitnabu b'kol hosif alehem Moshe shenitnabei b'zeh hadavar. For all the prophets, their prophesying was with the word ko amar Hashem, thus spoke God. Whereas Moshe is zeh davar, this is what God said. So zeh indicates clarity, right? V'hu ki kol ha'neviim hayashlichutam Yisrael b'ma'amar nevuatam kefi ha'et v'hazman ukefi koach hasagatam kein hitnabu. So all the prophets, the ko, thus, which indicates a lack of clarity, their prophecy was time-bound. And according to their level, their capacity to grasp the prophecy, that's how they prophesied, because it comes through them. Okay? The Allah, now here's what's interesting. The Allah beruach nevuatam, asher dvar nevuah halaz Yeh kayam le'olmei ad. But what they thought was, right, va'ala beruach nevuatam, what they thought was that their prophecy will be eternal, that their message is an eternal message. Ach be'emet, but this is not true, he says. Ach be'emet nimtza shunuyim ke'erech lefi erech dor vador. Okay, but really every generation is different. So the messages are not universal. They become dependent upon time and space and the ability of the subject, right? Namely the prophet, the ability of the prophet to comprehend. So he's talking about subjectivity of prophecy, okay, and relativity of prophecy. Okay? Now, that is all the other prophets. What would we be tempted to say when it came as opposed to this? He's about to tell me Moshe is different than this, okay? So I want somebody to tell me, how is Moshe different, okay? Pnina, how is Moshe different? See, you're one of the people that has the camera on, so I can call on you. I don't like if there's, people don't have the camera. I don't know if they're really there. It would be embarrassing. So
as an anav.
What?
As an anav, he
Yeah.
would expect it to be related to, he's not thinking of it as a reflection of himself. That whatever he's bringing out is, he's reflecting Hashem in his attempt or his goal or he's able to or his purpose, his thinking is to reflect Hashem as Hashem, not to reflect it through himself. And
okay. So you're saying, if I understand you correctly, and this is what I would have thought also, because the Mashiach is about to turn it on its head. But what you're saying is, I think what most people would expect is, as opposed to the other prophets who are subjective and their conception is time-bound and limited by their own understanding and their general state of mind, body, and soul, right, is limited by that. That Moshe has some sort of objective view where it's not coming through him, but it's like Shechina doveret mitoch piv, God speaking through him, and it's not limited by Moshe the man, right? Would that capture what you're saying?
yes.
Okay, so I didn't pay her to say that. She said that all by herself, okay? Now, and I'm happy she said that because the Mashiach says the exact opposite, right? He says as follows, okay? V'al zeh hosif aleihem Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom litnabot b'zeh hadavar, right? Moshe was beyond the level of the other prophets. His prophecy is zeh hadavar, this. But what does that mean? Hainu shehu hesig kol davar lefi sha'ato u'mekomo v'hevin ki hanevua eina rak lezman ulachar zman yachpotz hakadosh baruch hu be'inyan acher. I'm going to read that again. Hainu shehu hesig kol davar lefi sha'ato u'mekomo v'hevin ki hanevua eina rak lizman ulachar zman yachpotz hakadosh baruch hu be'inyan acher. He's saying that it's not that Moshe has this eternal, unchanging view because he's transcended himself as a human being. No, he's the one who understands that everything is mediated through human consciousness. So he understands the infinity of the constantly changing God. That in my consciousness now, it's one way, but my consciousness can change and I'll understand it differently another time because God's will has changed. So what the mediation of the Torah through human consciousness means, the awareness of that, which is what Moshe has and the Nevi'im do not have, it's very similar to the awareness that Moshe Rabbeinu has is similar to Heraclitus, right? Heraclitus said that the foundational element was fire. because fire constantly changes. The only thing that's constant, according to Heraclitus, is change. He was known to say that you can't step into the same river twice. And he had a Talmud, I don't remember the Talmud's name, who used to say you can't even step into the same river once. Because the only thing that you have is flux. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu understands. The other prophets are taken by this illusion that the power of the experience of prophecy they have means it's eternal. It's coming, I experience it coming from God, and it can't change. But they don't understand that what's coming to them is a reflection of their own understanding. And God is much more hidden in the process. And Moshe Rabbeinu sees the infinity of God in the process, and he can see, because of that, the constant change. Because God cannot be encapsulated in the human words and in the human system. The God's will is infinite, and Moshe Rabbeinu understands that. He understands that he can't capture it, and that's why it can always change. Okay? You have to meditate upon this. So the first thing, let's trace our steps. What we saw from the Psukim and from the Elohim Yidaber, Moshe Yidaber ve'Elohim Ya'anenu b'kol, is that the revelation of the Torah must happen through the mediation of human consciousness. That means human subjectivity. That means different people see different things in the Torah. And evil people can actually see evil things in the Torah. And they can quote you all the sources in the world and justify the arguments. And they're speaking the language of the Torah, but it's evil. It's the Eitz. It's not even the Eitz Hadat Tova Ra. It's the Eitz Hadat Ra. And that's the Sam HaMavet. Right? And we have to be realistic about that. So you have subjectivity. Then you have the fact that the Torah can change. Now, it doesn't mean that anything can happen, right? And I just want to make clear what I'm saying. It doesn't mean that I can wake up tomorrow and say you can eat basar b'chalav, but it means that interpretations of the Torah, the way the Torah gets interpreted in the language of interpretation, which makes it coherent, right? There can be new interpretations which change the halakha and change the meaning when we come to interpret things differently and understand them differently, by virtue of the fact that we live in a different time, we're different people, we're influenced by different circumstances, our personal circumstances, the circumstances of our civilization, the century that we live in, the fact that we can talk over Zoom, that all influences the way we perceive things. And that's how we're going to interpret the Torah. And that's what we're going to bring to the table of interpretation. Okay? So there's this constant change, right? So that's the second point. The third point, let's go back, is something that we have in the Mea Shiloach again in Parshat Yitro. This is the Mea Shiloach on Anochi Hashem Elokecha. This is the first Mea Shiloach I ever learned, and this is what turned me on to the Mea Shiloach. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Okay. V'lo ne'emar ani, ki ilu haya katuv ani, haya mashma shegila az HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael et kol oro b'shleimut, v'lo yuchlu achar kach lahamik bidvarav, ki kvar gila hakol. All right, so I read a little too much. Let's just start from the beginning. He says the Torah, the language of Anochi is just a funny way of saying I, right? Ani is the normal way of saying I. But what would Ani indicate? Ani, he claims, would indicate clarity. Okay. Now, let's go back to my Eitz Chaim education in Borough Park from first grade, okay? When I grew up, personally, I grew up thinking that Ma'amad Har Sinai was the pinnacle of clarity, of divine revelation. I didn't put in those words, but that's what I thought. And you have this idea of hitkatnut hadorot, of yiridat hadorot, that with time we move away from that primal moment and we move further and further away, and things get less and less clear as we move along, right? So it's like what happens is then you have this religion of nostalgia, right? It used to be really good, and now Nebuch, it's really bad, and it's getting worse, and Mashiach will bring it back to the way it was, right? So you have this religion of nostalgia. So there's some people that like nostalgia. You know what they say about nostalgia? Nostalgia isn't what it used to be. Okay? So what the Mea Shiloach is going to say, again, is something very different than that, right? Because we would have said, okay, but it doesn't say ani. He says, if it would have said ani, that would have meant that God revealed himself entirely. But that's not the case. It says anochi. So what does anochi indicate, right? So first of all, if it said ani, shegila, it would mean shegila az HaKadosh Hu Yisrael et kol oro b'shleimut. Now, I would have said that's a good thing. But he says, no, v'lo yuchlu achar kach la'amik b'dvarav ki kvar gila hakol. Because then, if that would have been the case, then there'd be nowhere to go with it, because everything would have been revealed already. Okay, let's see where he goes with this. Achakaf moreh she'eno bishleimut v'rak dmut v'dimayon hu la'or shigaleh HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'atid. So he says that the kaf is a kaf hadimayon. Like we say in halacha, you say hirur kedibur or shomea ke'oneh. This is like that. When you make a comparison, that's a dimayon. Why is it called a dimayon, comparison? Because you need imagination, dimyon, to make a dimayon, to make a comparison. Because there's something there, you have to imagine a connection, right? That's the imaginative faculty where you connect the dots, right? You compare them. So that's the kafa dimayon. So you need a kafa dimayon. What he's saying here is something very racy theologically, that at Har Sinai, it wasn't ani Hashem Elokecha. It was ani ke Hashem Elokecha. The revelation itself is not clear. It's an approximation of God. Going back to the poignant way that Reb Tzadok put it, lefi ma she'efshar ba'olam hazeh. Only in as much as is possible in this world. You must have a kaf hadimayon in this world, because you cannot have that clarity. Because if God is infinite, the only way you can connect to the infinite is to be involved in an infinite process. Right? Afakaf moreh she'eno bishleimut v'rak dmut v'dimayon hu la'or shigaleh HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'atid. As a person gets deeper understandings of the Torah, he'll understand that until now they were in darkness. And that's what day and night indicate. Daytime, you say clear as day, is clarity. Laila, but what is nighttime? Hainu shelo yidmeh ha'adam she'isig hakol b'shleimut. Ki kol ma she'isig hu kelayla neged hayom haba acharav v'chein la'olam. Nighttime is necessary to instruct us in humility, that we realize that we don't understand. Because when we understand something better, we understand that what we understood yesterday was darkness compared to what we understand now. So you need the darkness in order to have an appreciation of what it is you think you understand for the moment. So the Laila, this is really a very interesting paradox. You have a revelation of Hester Panim. There's a revelation of night. We think of revelation as a revelation of light. No, this is a revelation of darkness. Because darkness is also a revelation. Because you understand, and sometimes it's a bigger revelation. You know, like I say, the worst thing about someone is they not only don't they understand, but they don't even know they don't understand. So if you can impress upon someone the limitations of their understanding, that's a real revelation. It really is a revelation. That's a revelation of Choshech, that they understand that they don't understand, right? So that's the revelation of Laila, right? And that process of Yom and Laila is unending, right? And that's why, and the lack of ending, the infinity of that, is how you can be connected to God. And that can only happen if the revelation is open-ended, so that you can be involved in that process. That's what Tzimtzum is, right? That there's space for us to move our consciousness into, so that we can be constantly growing. And that's a process which involves different types of revelation of light, as well as revelation of darkness. Okay. Now, so we have, you can say, three different aspects which emerge from this idea that Moshe Yidaber ve'Elohim Ya'anenu b'kol, that the revelation of the Torah is always mediated through human consciousness. The first is that there's a subjective element in the revelation. Okay? And how we interpret depends on what levushim we see the Torah through, right? What eyes do we see the Torah through? Okay, so that again, there are different types of levushim, but it becomes subjective. Right? The second is that the Torah, our understanding of the Torah, changes. And the Torah changes because it's the same thing. Our understanding of the Torah is the Torah, right? And according to who we are, that's how we understand. And we're not the same people that were on the planet 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago. So we can only understand according to how we understand. That means the Torah is constantly changing, right? And that's something that Moshe Rabbeinu understood. And the next thing, which is very important here, is that the revelation of the Torah is accompanied always by a lack of clarity and uncertainty, precisely because it comes through human consciousness. There's not something that I objectively heard words. It's all interpretation. It all comes through my mind. And I can always question myself in terms of what is it that I heard? How did I understand it? Could it be understood this way? Could it be understood that way? Was I hallucinating? What was going on, right? Let's continue a moment in the Mea Shiloach in Yitro. He says as follows. Actually, I'm just going to skip to the end, okay? Ki lo nigle la'adam shum davar ad tachlito. There's nothing that was revealed completely to a human being, okay? So that's the third point that emerges from the Torah being revealed through human consciousness. Okay, I just want to finish with something from Rab Tzadok. The time is a little short, so I'm not going to go through this Mea Shiloach and Parshat Lech Lecha, but the last source here, which didn't go out on the page that I sent out, but I added it now, and everybody can see it. This is Rab Tzadok. He's quoting the Mea Shiloach. He says it very clearly. He's talking about the famous midrash of the search of Avram Avinu in Lech Lecha, where the midrash says that Avram Avinu is like a person who came upon a burning city, and he says, where's the Baal Habirah? If Shar Birah Doleket, and there's no Baal Habirah, how could you have a city that's burning? Who's responsible for this? Right? And then the Midrash says Heitzitz alav Baal Habira, va'amar ani Baal Habira. Right? Do you all remember that? You remember that midrash? Yeah? Can you put little things like that? You remember that midrash? Okay, Susan is clapping. That's applauding. You like the midrash, okay? But, okay, you know the midrash. Whether you like the midrash, okay, I like the midrash too. Okay, so, okay. But, so here's what Rav Tzadok says about that midrash, okay? Okay, v'chein shamati al heitzitz alav Baal Habira. Lashon alav, Ratza lomar she'amar lo, because what does it say? Alav is upon him. It doesn't say heitzitz elav, that God appeared to him. That would indicate that he was in one place and God was in another place and God appeared to him. Right? That's the way we usually think of it. Right? But the midrash says heitzitz alav, God came upon him. So this is the way he's interpreting that. V'chein shamati, he's talking about the Mei HaShiloach. He heard from the Mei HaShiloach. Al heitzitz alav Baal Habira, lashon alav. Why it says alav as opposed to elav, right? Ratza lomar she'amar lo. Everybody has to be wearing seatbelts now, even if you're at home in front of your computer. Ratza lomar she'amar lo she'ata ba'atzmecha gam kein michlal Baal Habira. He said to Avraham, you're the Baal Habira. Ki halo kol ha'olam ro'im zeh. Everyone sees the Bira Doleket. Ve'ein levavam ro'esh klal lasig sheyesh Baal Habira ulevaksho. And no one else, it doesn't dawn on anyone else to seek God as a consequence of the burning city. But you are seeking God. That means that you're seeking God, the fact that your heart is ro'esh. So you can ask here, what's the Bira Doleket? Anybody want to, what's the nimshal? What do you think the Bira Doleket is? The burning city. What is it? Anybody want to venture?
Avram's heart.
Avram's heart. The Bira Doleket is Avram's heart. So he tells him, this is great, I love this, okay? He tells him, Ein levavam ro'esh klal lasik sheyesh Baal Habira levaksho. V'zeh she'ata mevakesh, gam zehu mitzidi. The stirrings of your heart, that's me. It's not that I'm telling you something from the outside. You're asking a question. Mi bara ele, right? Who is the one responsible? And I'm telling you, the fact that you're answering the question, you're asking the question, that's the answer. Ubelibcha makom shchinati, and I reside in your heart. Now listen to this. V'zetam ani. This is the most important point here. I don't want anybody to miss this. V'zetam ani. It's a double entendre. What's the answer in the midrash? Heitzitz alav Baal Habira v'amar lo ani Baal Habira. You know when you say Kriyat Shema at the end and you say Ani Hashem Elokeichem, right? I remember from the youngest age it used to bother me because it's as if you're saying it about yourself. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. But you're quoting the pasuk that God is speaking, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. But he's saying that's the meaning of the midrash. When he says Ani Baal Habira, it means both things. Because Avram Avinu is imagining speaking to God in the Bira Doleket, and he hears his internal voice is Ani Baal Habira, and it has a double meaning. That's my heart. I am the owner of the burning city. And God is the owner of the burning city. Who's the Ani? Is the Ani referring to Avram, or is the Ani referring to God? And the answer is, Pnina?
Yes.
Yes, the answer is yes, right? It's not this and that. The answer is yes. Right? Now, if we go back, we see this. It sounds like radical theology, right? Art Green wrote a very interesting book called Radical Judaism, okay? Where he very much emphasizes this point. Whatever, I don't want to get into his book, but you look back in the Psukim, okay, and you see that there's a very compelling interpretation to say that is actually Moshe's voice. It was a human voice that they heard at Sinai. And God was there, but in a very hidden way. God is there in their hearts, and they're hearing Moshe's voice because it's coming through human consciousness. The human consciousness is the instrument through which, and it's the only possible instrument, it's the only possible instrument for the revelation of God. So that the revelation of God is me, and it's God. Both, and neither, and yes, and no. I'm getting too many paradoxes, but that's what we're touching here, okay? And that has very important ramifications in terms of how we understand humility, how we understand what faith is, how we understand that certainty is an enemy of faith because you're trying to grasp something and you're saying something which is finite is infinite, and that becomes a source for a potential idolatry. I just want to finish with a beautiful quote from Kierkegaard from a short essay that he wrote called Truth as Subjectivity. And this goes to the Mea Shiloach, that an outcome of the Torah being mediated through human consciousness is a lack of clarity. It must come with a kaf hadimayon, a lack of certainty. So let's see what Kierkegaard says. I'm going to read this. Here, I'll share my screen with this. Here again. Okay, back up here. Okay, everybody see this? All right, I'll make it a little bigger so everybody can see it maybe. Okay. He says as follows: without risk, there is no faith. Faith is precisely the contradiction between the infinite passion of the individual's inwardness and the objective uncertainty. If I am capable of grasping God objectively, I do not believe. But precisely because I cannot do this, I must believe. If I wish to preserve myself in faith, I must constantly be intent upon holding fast the objective uncertainty so as to remain out upon the deep, over 70,000 fathoms of water, still preserving my faith. To be intent upon holding fast the objective uncertainty. That's a beautiful phrase. Right? And the other phrase I would walk away, this whole thing is beautiful, but what I would walk away with, if I am capable of grasping God objectively, I do not believe. But precisely because I cannot do this, I must believe. Right? So this preserves a pure type of faith, understanding that it comes through human consciousness and therefore is intricately bound with the limitations of human consciousness. That means there's always an element of uncertainty, and that's where its power is drawn from. Right? And that's where humility comes from, that I don't have the truth with a capital T. I have my way of viewing things, and that creates space for other people's way of viewing things for themselves. Right? And then we come together, and to overcome subjectivity, we try to come to some sort of communal understanding, some sort of civilizational understanding, which does a little bit better than my totally subjective understanding. Right? But that's the topic of a whole other shiur. Okay? All right, so thank you very much. I'm happy people send me emails with questions. I don't know if we can handle questions in this context, but thank you very much. And I wish everyone a Chag Sameach, where if we can't come together physically, that everybody should be together in their machshavot and their kavanot. And Bezrat Hashem, everybody will be able to chogeg the next regel. I think it's Yomim Noraim already, that we should be able to physically be together as a community.
Amen.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sameach.
Okay.
Thank
Chag
you.
Sameach, everyone.
Yasher Koach, Herzl.
Thank you.
Thank you.